Mark Redmond wants to know, how do I remove the lower cowl if the latches don't retract when the lever is raised? Mark, this is a really good question. Thank you for commenting and subscribing. That is going to really depend on what model of engine you have. Now, when you say lower cowl, I'm not sure if you're talking about the lower cowlings or the top cowling, but if the only thing that I could think of is that you mean like the cowling itself, because that's the only thing that's going to have latches. Everything else, like the lower cowling and all that stuff, that's all going to come apart only if you have the top cowl off. If you don't have the top cowl off, then the lower is not going to come off. And the lowers, I'm trying to think of any model that has lower cowls that are held on by a latch. All of them are screwed on together. They're two pieces. They go around the drive shaft housing and they screw together. So I'm assuming that you're talking about the top cowl, even though you said the lower cowl, unless this is a Verado and you're talking about the rear cowl. So based on that, that's what I'm going to give you an information based on each type of those different situations. If you're talking about the rear cowl on an L6 Verado, there are two latch cables that go around and hook it in the back like this. So like whenever you take the top cowling off, you take that off. There's then a handle, you flip that handle up, and there's two latches that are holding the back cowl on that, comes off the back like that. Those two latches are stuck. A lot of times you can grab the cowling in the back on the bottom and the top and pull on the bottom. Those latches are stuck on cables and they're corroded and the cables are not letting go. And sometimes you can just yank on the bottom of it and get those to pop free, and then that'll get the cowling off. If that doesn't work, then you need to get a long screwdriver that you can stick down in there, or a long pry bar or something that you can put down on that latch that's hooked like this. You'll put it on that latch and then you'll hit it with a hammer and knock that latch back. Once it goes back, then the cowling is going to come off. Now, if you're talking about any other engine, like say a Yamaha or like a Merc V8 or V6 or something like that, where the cowling is actually stuck, very common on Yamaha 3.3 liters or Yamaha HPDIs, where the handles would not, they would get stuck there, or the housings themselves would get corroded and you couldn't unlatch them to get the cowling to come off. So based on the model that you have, is going to be based on how you're going to get that latch off. If it's like an HPDI, they're kind of easier because the handles flip out like this, and then some of the 3.3s as well. Those handles, you can pry on them. The main thing is that you're going to break something. Like no matter what it is, no matter the model, no matter the engine, you're going to end up breaking something in order to get that cowling off. And if it is like a 3.3 or an HPDI, something like that, Yamaha 3.3 liter 4-stroke, like 200, 225, 250, any of those, the latches on the cowlings have like housings that sit down like this, and there's a little latch that sits in that cowling that rotates when you move the handle in and out. So what you got to do is basically take a screwdriver or something, stick it up in there behind the handle, and you're going to hit it with a hammer until that housing busts open. Once that housing busts open, the housing is what actually holds the handle together. So once that housing busts open, then the handle's just going to be flopping around there. You can move it out of the way, get your cowling off. Now, there are other models that doesn't work. Some of the ones that come out like this, and then also like a Merc V8 or V6, the new style that has the cowling latches. I mean, not really new. It's like 8 years old. But some of those you will have to drill a hole in the cowling. So based on the model, there'll be a certain dimension that you have to drill, and you'll have to measure up on the cowling, measure over, and you'll have to drill a hole in the cowling, and then you'll be able to get to that latch, to that cable. Like the V8s, you drill through the cowling, and I want to say there's a little like a cable thing that you can turn, and it's going to release that latch. And then on like the Yamahas, it's similar thing where you're drilling a hole in it and you're drilling through to where that cable, you can knock the cable out of the way, or unhook it, whatever it may be, depending on the model, to get the cowling latch to actually unhook from mounting it down. That should hopefully answer your question. That's a really good question because it does happen, especially on older engines. People in freshwater probably never going to have to deal with that, but as far as anybody in the saltwater, not very uncommon to see something like that on like a 20, 25-year-old engine that's been sitting for 5, 10 years and has not had the cowling come off. So if you like this clip, you can watch the full podcast over here, or you can watch another clip over here.